It's my pleasure to introduce an award-winning journalist, now with Fox, but she's been with many, many different places, always in places of trouble and difficulty. She comes away with the truth, and you never see her upset. You never see her scared. You never see her anything other than she just tells the news. Sara, we've got great respect for you. You know that. And the stories you bring to our country and to America, we never get if we didn't have a person like you. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I got to tell you, it's been gut wrenching watching what's happening on this
Sure.
border. It really has. It's been terrifying. What we were seeing under President Trump was an actual, for the first time, in my opinion, but based on facts, based on what I've actually been able to see. I've been covering the border now for about 15, 16 years. And I've been traveling into Mexico even long before that. But for the first time under President Trump, and then I'm going to explain why I'm saying this, we saw a president that actually wanted to make a difference at the border, actually put into place policies that, for the first time, actually terrified the drug cartels, right? And put them in check, at least for the moment. It wasn't that everything was all encompassing. It wasn't going to be fixed in a day, but for the moment, the drug cartels and the human traffickers knew, okay, this guy means business. I did not see that under the Bush administration. Sorry to say, I did not see that under the Obama administration. And I certainly don't see that under the Biden administration. And what I'm saying about this last year, Mayor, was that for the first time, I saw an escalation, not only in the violence at the border by the cartels and the organized crime, but their ability to extend that globally in a way that we've never seen before. We're seeing people from over 150 countries coming in through the border. The border's been wide open. We've seen the mandates being placed on Americans as far as like COVID-19 mandates across our country, stamping on the Constitution, stamping on U.S. citizens' rights, I believe. But nothing being done at the border. The border is wide open. Our Border Patrol agents, as well as our Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers, have been literally standing there at the border with their hands tied behind their back. Some of them have said, we've just given up completely. We are releasing people into the United States, not only people that we believe are COVID positive or could have other contagious diseases, but for the most part, we're releasing people into our country that could pose a serious national security threat.
Wow.
I've never
You
seen
know,
anything like it.
so if we go back to the 4 years of Trump, he had when I look at just the statistics, the reality, I see there was a decline, then there was a big spike, and then a big decline during Trump. I guess that's around when he did the stay in Mexico policy. He got a lot tougher at the border in turning people back. It seemed to me that Trump had an initial big impact, then there was a big influx, and then all of a sudden all the policies went into effect, and we had about 1 year of one of our lower years for people crossing the border. And then he came up with that brilliant agreement to have the asylee seekers stay on the other side of the border, which, by the way, Ronald Reagan did with the Haitians back in 1982. And do you know who negotiated that? I did.
That's amazing, because I think that was one of the most brilliant ways of handling. Look, just like President Trump, just like you, just like me, my mother was an immigrant. All of our families were immigrants. I'm a first generation American on my mom's side, born in the United States. She came from Cuba in the late 1960s. I speak Spanish fluently. I love traveling to Central America and Mexico. I've never been to Cuba, unfortunately.
Nor have I.
But I don't really want to go there until the regime is over.
Same feeling.
Yeah, even though I want to see it, I just can't
Yes.
live up to that. But I, you know, I can't imagine, I can't imagine that any of us don't want this nation to have more immigrants. We want to welcome more people. We want to do it the right way.
100%.
We want to do it the right way. But having a border wide open where people's lives are literally threatened. And by the way, Mayor, for the Democrats, you'll hear a lot of, and I don't like using the word liberal anymore. I like to say leftist Marxists because I think that's exactly where we're heading.
That's a very excellent suggestion. I'm going to write that down.
I just don't even use liberal anymore because it's not our father's
And I
Democratic
think
Party.
those words are necessary, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
Leftist
These are leftist Marxists with an agenda. And there's a couple of things happening here. It's like a perfect storm. You have the leftist Marxists pushing for this open borders agenda. Why? Because they don't care who comes in. They just want to flood the country with people that are going to support their ideological agenda to fundamentally change our nation, to change its principal values. And they don't care how they do this. We've seen that even with the UN and its migration policy and its open policy, where they're actually handing out, by the way, US taxpayer dollars.
Right.
US taxpayer dollars, credit cards for illegal immigrants to travel and to use in the United States. So this is money that we're funding.
So,
and go ahead.
You have something that even all the people that are experts on immigration, I'm talking about the congressional people who are truly interested in all the people who study this. But unlike almost anyone else, you're with that. You know it. You can convey what it really is like on both sides of the border. So first, tell us about the Mexican side of the border. Here's a little sketch, and here's what I think people don't understand. It's virtually, if maybe an exaggeration, but it's virtually controlled by the cartels. It's almost as if they're the gatekeepers. They check the people who come into the United States, not the United States. And that's been going on for how long? I found out about it 2 years ago, maybe, but it's been going on for some time, right? I mean, they virtual stranglehold.
It's been going on for decades. It didn't just happen overnight. Even Bush.
So tell us what happened.
Trump,
how do they do that? How do they accomplish that?
Well, they've accomplished it by being allowed for years and years, for decades, to build up what I consider massive organizations. These are not just little gangs. These are established cartels, much like, I think you would think of the Italian mafia as being a comparison, but I say it's far worse. They have a global reach. Their whole fundamental value is based on power and money. They operate as a narco state inside Mexico, inside Central America, inside Colombia. Their tentacles spread across the globe. They ship, I just want people to understand this. It's hundreds of billions of dollars that they amass. When you have that much money, you're able to put people in your pocket. You're able to get semi-submersible submarines to outrun the Border Patrol and the Guatemalan authorities. You're able to load up on arsenal. You build your own armies. And that's what these cartels have done. When we first started seeing them fight, maybe if you go all the way back to Enrique Camarena in the 1980s, Kiki Camarena, who was killed and tortured by the cartels once he was out and he went undercover. His name was Kiki Camarena, Enrique Camarena. He was with the DEA,
and that was when?
And he went, and that was in the 1980s. And
I was at his funeral. I was at his funeral when I was with the Justice Department then. I remember it at St. Patrick's.
Yeah, and his son actually went on to be a judge in San Diego. I remember covering. I interviewed his partner at way back when, and Jaime Kirkendall, and yeah.
You really have a history with this. You've got an incredible history with this, Sarah. You really know it.
What? Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is because I want everyone who's listening to your podcast to really understand that this is not about immigrants. This is not about saying no to immigrants, or this idea that anybody who basically stands up to this kind of crazy, wild, chaotic, lawless border that we have going on right now, that anybody who stands up or speaks against it is speaking against immigrants. I'm talking about what you're saying, Mayor. This is the other side of the border. People in Mexico live like prisoners. They live like prisoners. They're terrified of walking out of their house to the grocery store in Nuevo Laredo for fear that they're going to get in the crossfire of a drug cartel battle. They're terrified that their children are going to be wrapped up into these gangs, this MS-13 and all these other offshoot gangs that are getting fed money by these cartels. I saw that in Guatemala when I went up into the mountains a couple of years ago into the villages. Some of the parents said, I'm so scared for my child because all they see are these cartels operating, and that's how they put the money in their pockets.
Well, let's take just a short break, and when we come back, we're going to give them a sense of how well. I mean, these are major league organizations. Let's put it that way. We'll be right back with this excellent interview with Sara Carter. You're going to find out more about the Mexican border, southwest border, than you really want to know. Oh, thank God she's with us. We'll be back in a moment. How much equity do you have in your home? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes. Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Next, they pull your home's title that's online. They forge your signature stating you sold your home, and they take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address now to see if you're already a victim and receive a complete title history of your home, a $100 value free. Go to HometitleLock.com. That's HometitleLock.com. Thank you for coming back, and let's ask Sara, what's the level of organization and sophistication of these Mexican drug cartels? Are they less sophisticated, more than the Colombian and the mafia guys? And because I think a lot of people have the sense that they're not quite the same thing. They're not quite at that level.
Oh, they're beyond that level now.
Right.
These are monstrous organizations. They have like swallowed up whole some areas of Colombia. I was up in the mountains, like I said, in Guatemala a few years ago, right before COVID, and I went to a facility that was basically one of the biggest cocaine jungle labs that they had ever taken like into custody, like the Guatemalan authorities. And it was a completely run by the Mexican and Guatemalan criminal organizations, and the Mexicans were directly involved in this. Just to put it into perspective, the Mexican cartels, like I said, have amassed hundreds of billions of dollars. You have, Los Zetas, Sinaloa. You have the biggest one now, Nuevo Generacion. El Menche is, they call him the ghost.
Where is that geographically?
So you're looking at Sonora, Mexico. You're looking at, the Nuevo Laredo area is mostly Los Zetas. Sinaloa takes over, of course.
And how about the Sinaloa? Those were the ones that I remember from my ancient days of Mexican drug enforcement.
Yeah, well, you have El Chapo Guzman now in custody in the United States.
Are they still the big boys on the block, or are they challenged now?
They're challenged by Jalisco Cartel, the new generation, Nuevo Generacion. But look, they just put another guy in place because you have a crime syndicate for all purposes that is a narco state. The Mexican government has one of the most difficult jobs ever because either half of them are in the pocket of the cartels, and I'm just being straight up with you, or the other half that wants to do something about it can't do anything because they're being threatened. And just to put it into perspective, I don't want to forget this. Our Border Patrol agents, our drug enforcement officers, drug enforcement agents, our ICE officers, our FBI, and by the way, our CIA, our intelligence operations that are happening overseas here in the Western Hemisphere. They'll go to say, look, these cartels literally have technology that sometimes supersedes ours.
That's a very important point, because I think that's totally against the prejudices that people have. The Mexicans were always the lower players. They have catapulted to the top now. And they have a lot of representation what struck me, and I learned over the last year, a lot of representation in American cities. So when they're sending people in, they don't have to rely. They got their own people they can connect them to in Chicago, in Phoenix, in New York, in Miami. They have their own operatives, their own cartel operatives in those places.
Yeah, and they've cut out America for themselves, right? So maybe Jalisco, Nuevo Generacion has a certain area of the United States, whereas Sinaloa has said, look, hands off, you can't come into Ohio because we control that. And we've seen what's happened in Ohio, right? Deaths, unbelievable amount of deaths, fentanyl pouring into the country from across the board. And you brought up a really good point. That map, by the way, was in 2015. That was the last map that we have had from the DEA breaking up what was going on. Where's the new one? I want a new one. I want a new map that shows where all these cartels are splitting up, how much they're bringing into the country. Because I can tell you this, of the, I think it's 20.4 million counterfeit pills. And I want your audience to hear this because this is not about
counterfeit pills.
Yeah, and that the DEA has taken into basically, I think it's 20.4 million, but go ahead and check those numbers because I'm doing it.
Okay, I think
I'm doing it off the top of my head, but that the DEA has taken into custody or interdicted of those 40% of all those counterfeit pills. That's Percocet, OxyContin, Xanax, Valium, Adderall that's on our streets, being sold on our streets. 40% are lethal of what they tested. 40% will kill an average man.
And the reason?
It's coming from China into Mexico.
Of course.
And the Mexican cartels are dealing directly with the Chinese. They're getting a supply of what they call precursor chemicals. And those chemicals are being used to basically manufacture fentanyl in Mexico. And that fentanyl is hitting those pills on our streets. And the reason why is like the drug cartels don't even, like they can't have enough money, right? These are people that all they think about is power and money and greed, and they're evil. I mean, these are the type of people that would kill a 2-year-old child in front of their parents.
So fentanyl without too much trouble will kill you, right? If you make a mistake, right? About the amount
Right.
you put
Okay.
in.
This is okay. Yeah. Let me tell you this. 2 milligrams of fentanyl, which is barely a dust. You could barely even see it. I was down at the Houston Crime Lab not too long ago, and they did it. We did it right there in the crime lab, and they measured it. You can barely see it. Is enough to kill a grown man. And I want you to understand this, and for everyone else out there, these pills actually look identical to what we get prescribed at the doctors. We've never seen this before in the United States. If you would borrow a pill from someone or take a pill, or someone says, oh, here, you're feeling depressed, here, take a Valium, get some sleep, or take a Percocet, your back hurts, you would never in your life imagine, Mayor, that pill did not come from a doctor. Now we have to deal with that. Now we have millions of pills on our street. And the reason why is these drug cartels have figured out that's where they're going to make their money. And they don't care about the collateral damage. They don't care about the collateral damage or what's happening here in the United States. And what makes it even more frightening is that the Chinese figured out a way around. Remember, Trump negotiated with the Chinese and said, I don't want any more fentanyl coming into the US directly. And he stopped it. He stopped it. But the problem was the Chinese government basically said, okay, you want to stop the pure fentanyl from coming in directly? Then what we're going to do is we're going to send the precursor chemicals through Mexico. The Mexican cartels then mix it up in Mexico and they ship it here to the United States. So we are this is deadly. It's a problem for our nation. It terrifies me. And I really want people to understand how massive these criminal organizations are and what they can do.
I got a statistic this morning that they're trying to close out 2021, and they're saying that there was 132% increase in the amount of fentanyl, I think, that was seized. So that how much more got through, who knows, right? 132%. That means they doubled the amount that was brought in the year before, and the year before may have been a record, by the way. So they doubled the amount of fentanyl seized. So, and as you know, like for the number of illegals that are apprehended or the number of drugs seized, about an equal amount gets through and is not seized. Like the idea that we see every person coming over the border is absurd.
Well, equal amount or more. And I
Of
think when
course, we've
I
never
was
known how many.
right, exactly. And one of the big things that one of the issues that I think the Houston, as well as when I was in Houston at the crime lab, as well as the border officers here in Texas, Texas Department of Public Safety, they told me that just what they seized in 2021 and 2020 was around over 200 million lethal doses, is what I think they said that they
Oh,
seized. I mean, if they were to use that in you think about it in 2 milligrams per tablet, but it's an 825% increase in fentanyl seizures, and that was just I think the El Paso field office that recorded that. So this is really something that Americans need to pay attention to. You want to know why? Because it doesn't just deal. It's not just about the cartels. It's not just about the border. It's about your children. And when these fentanyl tablets come across the border, you would think to yourself, my kid isn't a drug addict. My kid isn't sitting there junkie
oh, how
OD.
often have we heard that in even the last couple of weeks? We've had a couple of these where some kid took an oxycodone pill because he had pain. He was a hockey player, thought it was a legit one. He borrowed it from somebody. Probably the kid who got it didn't even know, and the kid's dead.
Right. Right. So that's pretty daunting. And I think this is so important. I think it's important that we talk about the fact that these aren't just small gangs operating in Mexico. These aren't just people running around on a motorcycle trying to sell some dope. This is about massive, and once again, I'll say it, massive organizations that have been allowed to grow, that have been allowed to flourish over the last decades because of corruption, because of the fact that there's addiction, because of the fact that now they're moving out of addiction into different types of contraband. And
Absolutely.
these organizations have no loyalty to anyone but themselves. So when someone says, hey, they don't want to kill the supply chain, they're not going to want to kill someone who's purchasing the narcotics, that'd be bad for business. They don't really care because they know that even if a bad batch of fentanyl gets out on the street, that eventually they're going to make more money off of
Right.
that. And by the way, all the people that are being trafficked across that border, and Rudy, I spent a lot of time on that border. These are children, many of them who have been abused, many of them who have
Mm.
been abandoned, and many of them who are going to end up in the United States, basically working as in the sex industry or as human
That's what I
slavery.
want.
Let's
I
just be
wanted to get to
honest.
that also. So we're going to take one last break, and when we're going to come back, we're going to get into that. And I do want to ask her about the role of China and how deliberate is the role of China in this. I know you're coming back. This has been a terrific interview by Sara Carter. Nobody knows more than Sara. We'll be right back. Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of My Pillow, and his team fit me for my very own My Pillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give My Pillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build My Pillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on My Pillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All My Pillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code RUDY for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code RUDY. Welcome back to our final segment with Sara Carter. Too bad it's the final segment. We'll have her on again. Fabulous, right? She really knows what she's talking about. So I want to ask Sara now, because we hear China here all the time. China, fentanyl coming from China. People die. I don't know. In my day, drug dealers didn't like to kill people. They lost customers. What is going on with so many people dying of fentanyl? They know that a certain number are going to die. They even have a statistic, and they don't seem to care. Why is that?
That's the $1 million question, Rudy. But I think that what we know are the facts. Let's just lay out the facts. You have the Chinese, which are the Chinese Communist Party, which allows anything that leaves China, anything that comes into China, the Chinese Communist Party is well aware of it. So you have China being the major exporter of fentanyl and fentanyl precursors. Those are the chemicals used to manufacture fentanyl in Mexico, to the United States. Under President Trump, the Chinese government promised to stop shipping fentanyl the way they were shipping it to the US. And what they did was they backtracked. Instead of shipping pure fentanyl, they started shipping the fentanyl chemicals, the chemicals to basically manufacture fentanyl to Mexico. Those chemicals are directly sent basically to the drug cartels in Mexico, who are supplying these counterfeit pills. And I'm warning everyone out there, you may think you're an expert, but you are not. I talked to crime lab people. I went in the crime lab. I saw the pills. I saw the fentanyl pills versus the real oxycodone, and I could not tell the difference at all. Those pills are ending up on our streets. A good majority, and I'm just going to say, I think right now it's 4 out of 10. We couldn't even be able to tell the difference. But the DEA right now is saying 4 out of 10 of those pills contain a lethal dose that will kill you. So it's like playing Russian roulette. So we have to ask ourselves this question: why are the Chinese moving so much fentanyl into our nation? Why are we not paying enough attention to it while our children are dying and our people are dying? And in my opinion, and based on, my husband worked, for a long time. He was a Delta commando, and he worked in the Middle East like me. He worked in Afghanistan. We dealt with insurgencies, right? We dealt with irregular warfare. When I would write about it, it was irregular warfare. Are the Chinese conducting, and this is a very serious question I have, irregular warfare with the United States using the Mexican cartels as a proxy? And I say
Wow.
that only because
Not an insubstantial question, Sarah. Very important.
right, it is, because when people are dying, and okay, so you'll say, well, they made the choice to take the pill. Well, in the 1980s and the 1990s, you would never be afraid of taking a pill that maybe your father or your grandmother or
Sure it is.
somebody said, hey, I know you don't have time to go to the doctor. I have some antibiotics, or look, I have a Percocet, I have a Valium or something. You would never think that, because you would say to yourself, oh, it's a prescription pill. Now what you have is the streets flooded with counterfeit pills, literally poisoning our children, poisoning our country. And not a lot of information out there about that. But we saw over 93,000 overdoses last year. I was
Is that 93,000? Did you say 93,000?
Yep, 93,000 deaths, overdoses. One of the biggest years we've seen. I was actually in Franklin County, Ohio. The day that I was there a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to the coroner, Dr. Anahi Ortiz, who did a big report on fentanyl deaths in Franklin County, Ohio, and the increase of those. It was just exorbitant. And while I was there, she had 95 people in her morgue. She said she has never, in one day, like they were usually, they had to get a bigger building. This was the same coroner's office that basically, I don't know if you remember this, a few years ago, when we really started seeing fentanyl pour into the country was around 2015. In 2018, with all of these street drugs being laced with fentanyl, we saw the numbers spike. They went from ordinary addiction rates to spiking addiction, and then also deaths. And she literally had to get refrigerators to keep bodies in, because she did not have enough space at the coroner's office at that time.
Well,
And now it's worse.
so this, I hate to set up another analogy, but what you're telling me all of a sudden reminds me a lot of how they spread COVID in the U.S. You know, the Chinese sent those people, they kept them home in China. They didn't tell anybody. They sent it around and they made sure the world was infected. It sounds like they're, well, if they know what they're doing, it sounds like they're trying to create havoc here in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, when a nation's in chaos, it's incapable of really doing what it needs to do to see what's going on. I mean, when you have the waters all muddied, it's hard to see what other players are doing, other leadership. Especially if you're looking at China and Russia, Iran, North Korea. I mean, we really do have real enemies out there. Those enemies use other enemies to target us. It's irregular warfare. It's complicated. But when you start looking at the facts, you have to ask yourself these questions. I mean, when we have drugs flooding our streets the way they are, and those precursor chemicals are coming from China. And by the way, the Chinese aren't only sending those precursors to Mexico, and this is according, by the way, to a US report. This is a United States government report that was done in 2021 in August. The Chinese are also laundering Mexican cartel money.
Of course.
So, I mean, quid pro quo. I don't know what's going on here.
And
we have to investigate. I mean, this is up to our U.S. intelligence agencies, our law enforcement agencies, the government, hopefully a new president in 2024.
Well,
and
how much worse, if you may, the few minutes we have left, how much worse did it get from Trump to Biden? Because it almost seemed like within 5 days after the inauguration, we were in a new world. I'm getting calls from, I have a lot of friends in Texas. I'm getting calls from Texas. One guy's, I think did Biden just give the border away?
That's perfect.
But right away, it just happened right away. Boom.
It was instantaneous. 1.7 million apprehensions over the last year. Think about the magnitude of that. And those are the people that were apprehended. A majority of them were let go, were just released into our country. And we don't even know about the gotaways. Those are the people that we didn't even have a chance to fingerprint or look at or pass through a tent or take down their names and set them free. We don't even know. Could be the same exact amount that came in, that got away. And that's what I'm hearing from people. This is what I say, Rudy, Mayor. Hi, I know. I just love calling you mayor because I still think you were the best mayor of New York City ever.
You're the best. But
this is what I say. This is not a failure on the Biden administration. It's a failure for us as the American people. We're the ones being harmed by it. This is exactly what the Biden administration wants. This is their agenda. They are doing exactly what they wanted to do. They wiped out all of the executive orders put in place by President Trump to protect the American people. They did it like that. So when you hear, oh, this is a policy failure, no. This is their policy success. This is what they wanted. They wanted to harm us.
Excellent point. Because they're doing nothing to stop it.
Right. And they don't care. No, in fact, they're doing everything to push it.
Think of that. That's brilliant.
They're doing everything to push it. And they're putting our lives in danger. And they're putting, by the way, the lives of those immigrants in danger because they're using them. They are using them, and they are part of the process of abuse that these people have been suffering. These people have been suffering for decades, and especially for those children. The Biden administration they're a trafficking organization, and they are a part of the trafficking organization. And unless they put a stop to it, I'm not going to stop saying it.
Well, Sara, we're going to have you back if you don't mind, and keep in touch with you because nobody knows more about it. And anytime you need us, we're here. Maria, myself, we're here to help you. You're doing God's work. You're doing the work. Honestly, Sara, you're doing the work that the government should be doing. If this were Ronald Reagan, or if this were Trump, or even I'm going to say Bush, or they weren't as aggressive. If we're a decent president, even a lot of this work is being done by the government because we care about the death of our citizens. But Biden doesn't care about anything. And whenever you hear the word China, I tell you, he's compromised. The minute this man is locked up in a little, he's got handcuffs. The minute China, they got $30 million worth of handcuffs.
Yeah, everything they tried to accuse the Trump presidency of is exactly what they have been doing all along.
And you were a hero on that too. So give my regards to your husband, a great American hero, and to you, a great American hero. Now we're gonna have you back real fast. Well, not much to really say. Sara covered it all. Just that we're gonna follow up. You're gonna follow up. We're gonna stay in touch. You're gonna let me know through rudyscommonsense.com because we pick up a lot of information. There's a lot of questions I asked came from you, and we're gonna get ready. By the way, I want my audience to know we're getting ready for a big Q&A session. So you start getting the questions ready, all right? And we're getting ready to launch Rudy's Freedom Network so that we organize all of this because we got a lot of parts here and we succeed the better we put those parts together, and we are organized like a machine for freedom. They may be motivated by their greed and their hatred and their meanness and their psychopathy. We're motivated by the love of our country, the love of our children, and the love of our friends. Oh, yeah. Once again, let's remind ourselves, the love of the country is so good for us. Well, God bless you. God bless America. Go back and help me reorganize all my prior podcasts and tell me the ones I can use. And try to get me on 77 WABC. You can get the app. You can get me online, WABCradio.com, or you can go to 77 WABC and we can talk. So please stay in touch. We need to stay closely together. We're fighting for our country. God bless you. God bless America.